Egypt is one of the Middle East's most modern countries, yet it suffers from some basic peace and justice issues. Egypt borders Libya, Sudan, and Israel, and its capital is Cairo, and one of its largest cities is Alexandria on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. It gets most of its water and food from the Nile River as it runs through. Ordinary people in my country work just as work as they do in any other country. They work normal jobs, yet 40% of the women population does not work. I am President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, and I was one of Egypt's leading generals when I stepped down and was elected democratically as president. My country was heavily affected in 2011 by the Arab Spring. The population rose up against President Mubarak, and after mass riots in the street, Mubarak stepped down and fled the country. After a military takeover in which they suspended the constitution and held democratic elections, a religious fundamentalist named Hasham Kwandil was elected president and started putting into place Muslim fundamentalist ideas and principles that most of the country did not agree with. This caused a split between the Muslim fundamentalists and the ordinary citizens. And then in 2013, the military stepped in and performed a coup d'etat, overthrowing the government and stabilizing the country by jailing and killing thousands of Muslim Brotherhood extremists. The leader of the military, myself, I was elected in the next elections, and my goal is to erase discrimination in my country from religion, gender, whatever it be, and lessen the amount of military power in my country. Egypt has not been at war since 1950 in its war with Israel. But since their peace treaty, they have not had a war since. This does not mean we do not have conflict. We had mass riots in 2011 and in 2013, and many thousands of our citizens were killed, and a lot of police. But these conflicts might finally have been resolved. With my election, the country is stabilized. The U.S. is again sending aid. There have not been any mass riots or need for military intervention since. We have very favorable relations with our bordering countries. We have no outstanding wars, and our peace treaty with Israel has allowed us to receive lots of aid from the U.S. and allowed Israel to become a sovereign nation and the nation it is today. Most of our social issues stem from the Muslim Brotherhood religious fundamentalist group. In 2013, when they were in control of the country, the military was forced to step in and perform a coup d'etat to keep the country from collapsing. Through them, a lot of terror and a lot of discrimination happens through our country. Again, Egypt has one of the most modern militaries in the world, yet suffers from a very basic issue of religious fundamentalism. Egypt, my country, receives $1.3 billion in military aid and weapons from the U.S. each year. This makes us one of the most formidable military forces in the Middle East. But that aid stopped in 2011 when, during a riot, the U.S. Embassy was raided, and this caused the U.S. to stop sending aid to us. And only with our continued stability and my election as president that the U.S. has resumed sending aid to Egypt. Since Egypt is still a modern country with modern medical facilities and doctors, we do not have very many health problems, but this was not always true. Before our modern medical system was established, improperly sanitized needles caused a large outbreak of hepatitis C to break out in the country, and we are only now starting to get a hold of it. Most, if not all, of our political issues stem from the social side of our country. The religious fundamentalist group, the Muslim Brotherhood, has... No. How did we say that? It's the social versus political. How did we say that before? It was... The social side of our country immediately dictates the political side. If a religious fundamentalist group, the Muslim Brotherhood, is in control, our political side reflects that. We would put Muslim extremist principles into play. But when a secularist government like myself is in place, again, our politics reflect that. 95% of the population of Egypt lives within 50 miles of the Nile. And this allows 99% of the population have access to clean water and sanitation. And anyone in our country has rights to property and water. No one in our country has a monopoly on any of that, and neither does the government. Egypt suffers from basic peace and justice issues. We have one of the most modern and formidable militaries in the Middle East. They suffer from basic human rights issues and separation of church and state. If Egypt is going to have as much peace and justice as they do military power, they need to accept basic human rights, and they need to realize the necessity of the separation of church and state.